A nation united by 13 districts has been living in harmony for many years. In one of the districts known as Baden, Gene Otis, the protagonist of our story, and his sister Lotta Otis are having breakfast as the news about King Falk's 99th birthday at the Dower Castle is being broadcasted on TV. The brother gets ready for his day at work, while the sister runs off to prepare his suitcase for the trip he announces at the last minute. On his way out, she throws him his signature cigarette case for which he is known as the cigarette peddler Gene. At the Baden District's ACCA headquarters, the inspection department starts their day like any other. However, when Gene the deputy chief walks in, he bursts their bubble by throwing at them the news of the department shutting down. Pochard, the deputy director general at ACCA, informs them that as they are aware of the fact that the Kingdom of Dower has 13 autonomous districts and ACCA has been created independently of the state. It includes many important agencies such as the police forces, fire departments and medical departments. Furthermore, these district branches have been given the authority to operate autonomously. However, ACCA monitors them all. At the time of instability about 100 years ago, the inspection department members were stationed at each district to supervise day-to-day tasks. Their main purpose of existence was during the time of chaos. Therefore, the department is ordered to shut down as it is no further required. However, Gene still needs to take a flight for an audit trip. Pochard reports back to ACCA's 5 chief officers and is dismissed. The members are Spade, Pastis, Lilium, Pine and Grossula. They discuss the shutting down of the inspection department. First and foremost, it will benefit the budget. Even though the department worked well at the time of upheaval, the department is no longer needed. The time has arrived for the headquarter to put its trust in the 13 district branches. Gene lands in the Famasu district. ACA's inspection department Famasu branch supervisor, Ida, picks him up from the airport. On the way, she informs him that since the harvest season is almost over, hardly anyone can be seen outside because most of the people in the district happen to be farmers. About 90% of the national produce is from Famasu. Jean has to be the bearer of bad news and informs Ida about the shutting down of the department. He assures her that as a supervisor herself, her job is still secured. At the district office, Gene goes through the office files for audit, which happen to be flawlessly maintained. Then he sits on the computer, video calls the HQ, and asks Not to send a copy of the Famasu inspector's timesheets and logging usage. The timestamp for October 3rd's log time is entered 5 minutes later than the rest. It's obvious that the data has been tampered with. Ida is taken aback. Jean flies to the West Station. He starts going through the log files on the computer and demands for Constable May and Pete's. But he already knows that they aren't going to be present because they are out making deals in the black market. He explains that on the 3rd of October, they both most likely got an anonymous tip about an illegal cigarette maker. The constables did catch the person, but decided to let him go for cuts from the future deals. Then the man in charge of the data compilation and entry fell into a dilemma about modifying their timesheet, but still entered the log. However, this caused him a delay of 5 minutes. Ida wants Gene to at least trust his subordinates, but later the men confessed, and Jean was right all along. He tells Ida that he just can't let his subordinates off the hook so easily, because at the end of the day, he is only doing his job. On returning back home, they get the news that the department is in fact not shutting down, because they are still needed to uncover further corruption. Grossula orders someone on the phone that he wants Gene to be kept under surveillance. Gene tries to complain to the head of the department named Owl. He tells the latter that usually their audit inspection is randomly done in the span of 2 years, but now the higher-ups want him to do it all in just 6 months. He questions what could he have possibly done to irritate the 5 chief officers to pass such an order. Gene goes out for a smoke. The police department rookie Rail watches him from a window with spite for his rich boy cigarette smoking habit. Rail tells his friend that he has heard a rumor about Gene living in some fancy penthouse in town centre, probably born with a silver spoon. Gene returns home when Lotto is requesting the building manager to fix the light bulb. She is taken by surprise to see him home because he was supposed to go out with his friend Nino, a journalist. But Gene can't shake the feeling of being watched. He goes to smoke in the open air of his penthouse where either God or the 5 chiefs with a chopper could see him. It's the next morning at the breakfast table. Lotta shares that the higher-ups might be after him, since they want him to get the evaluation of 13 districts completed in 6 months. He sets out to start with the local branch, but first a stop at the local bakery for some sandwiches is a must. Rail spots him there while buying donuts and starts passing snarky remarks about Gene being rich. but buying from a cheap bakery rather than a high-end one at the town centre. The ACA Inspection Department Baden branch supervisor, Gruss, is caught off guard with the sudden audit from Jean. The latter relays that it's not an audit if not sudden. Mauve, the Director General of ACA, also arrives for a surprise audit. Poor Gruss. On the way to the headquarter cafe, Gruss questions Jean's reckless use of cigarettes without any warnings issued from the HQ. Jean tells him that they are pretty chill about it. At the cafe, they come across Lilium and Pine. They praise Jean for his good work, share a cigarette and go on their merry way back. However, Jean is suspicious that some trouble might be brewing up. Only time will tell. He forgets his lighter there, and unfortunately Rael ends up finding it. At a bar with Nino, he can't find his lighter. The scene changes to Groschler getting the information from Mauve that a coup d'etat is about to happen soon. For this reason, she has been conducting surprise audits at various branches. He assures her that he will share this information with the 5 chief officers, and peace will prevail because the symbol of ACCA itself is the sign of peace. Jean is back at work with Not by his side. They listen to a tour guide explaining ACCA to students. She explains that ACCA came into being about 99 years ago. However, about 100 years ago, the current kingdom was divided into 13 different states and was brought together by the current king's great-grandfather. But then, during the king's father's rule, the 12 districts announced a coup d'etat. The king's father held meetings with the representatives from each district, and in the end giving each of them autonomy. This also led to the creation of an independent organisation known as ACA. The name comes from an extinct bird species. The symbol stands for peace. Rael still has the lighter with him. He wants to cause trouble for Jean by using his lighter as evidence for an arson. Jean, on the other hand, is neck deep in completing an audit. Just then, police sirens stats blaring. They see cop cars rushing. Gruss informs him that this time it's a cigarette store robbery. Rael catches one of the thieves, who turn out to be a kid. The kid scurries away, leaving behind the cigarettes. Rael picks a pack and lights it with Jean's lighter. The said man shows up from behind, repeating his own lines to him about smoking on the streets. Jean walks up to him. He already knows enough about Rael and starts counting it to him. He topped the arrest chart in just 3 months. Has 4 times pocketed and confiscated stolen goods. Has links to the black market, and he is currently plotting something with Jean's lighter. Rael is already irritated with him and announces that he had worked hard, but some rich snob like him took it all way too easily, and he had to end up in the police department. John finally understands the reason for Rael's rude and snarky behaviour. Unimpressed, Jean enlightens him that he isn't some rich kid, but his family manages a building that he lives in. He takes his lighter back and decides not to report him, not out of sympathy, but because it doesn't fall under the inspection department's jurisdiction. He finally gets the time to buy the tomato bread his sister had asked for from the bakery. Mauve also walks through the door. They seem to be running into each other these days. She is surprised to see him, but he informs her that he doesn't live in the neighbourhood and only came for the sandwich bread. Mauve lets him in on the fact that she will no longer be conducting any further audits, on the orders of the 5 chief officers. Nino meets Jean outside the bakery. He tells Nino that he feels like someone is watching him. Nino should look into the matter. Rael successfully catches an arsonist almost burning down the Otis siblings' condo. Just then, his eyes lay on Lotta, eating a few meters away. Rael gets infatuated right away. Nino joins her soon enough. She tells him to keep an eye out for Jean when he overdrinks because he is a light drinker. Nino asks what she's up to. She informs him that she's breaking down the living expenses to look for a husband because managing a building isn't an easy task. Plus, she is concerned about Jean being stuck with a job that he doesn't even like. Lotta wants Nino to bring the topic up for discussion next time he meets Jean. The 5 chief officers discuss the coup d'etat. It appears to be a rumour. The Director General seems to be overdoing it with the whole thing about conducting audits. They wonder why she believes it so firmly. Lilium points out that Groschler seems to be partially on the believing end as well, because he was the one who had decided not to dissolve the inspection department. Groschler clarifies that these rumours are not baseless. He has obtained important information that Jean Otis may be involved in the coup. He further informs them that he has already ordered Mauve to stop conducting any further audits. Being the 5 chief officers, they should deal with this matter by themselves. The speculation is that when Jean goes out for the audits, he makes contact with people planning the coup d'etat. Lilium says that Jean informed him about making several requests for a transfer, but it keeps getting denied by Groschler every time. The latter disagrees, saying he hasn't received any such application. Meanwhile, Jean is yet on another flight for an audit. This time, he doesn't get the feeling of being watched. Grossula opts for an undercover agent within the International Affairs Department to keep an eye on him. The agent in question is Nino, but is introduced to the rest of the 5 chief officers by his alias Crow. The man in question walks into the meeting room and gets introduced to the rest. In the Jumoku district, Jean reaches the hotel he is going to be staying in, but it seems that his room has been upgraded. On the table lies an envelope with a key inside it. Later, he meets Kururi, ACC's inspection department supervisor from Jumoku district. The computer system in the district's office is down. Jean decides to buy everyone lunch at Bassam. The size of food is insanely large at the restaurant. Kururi informs him that the youth's size has increased with it as well. He hears a click, looks to his right, and none other than Nino is there holding a camera. He tells Jean that he was tipped off, but didn't expect to find him here. Unbeknownst to Jean, he is an undercover spy. Jean thanks him for sorting out the whole thing about him being watched. However, someone spies on them from across the road. Kururi informs him apologetically that the system won't be up till the next day. Jean takes this opportunity to explore the farmer's market and buys fresh fruit. The system is still not up. In the end, they have to resort to manual entries. Jean helps out with the manual task at hand and is tired by the end of the day. He still musters up the strength to hang out with Nino. They catch up with each other. Nino jokingly brings up the topic of switching career paths since he looks so fed up with his. Jean hates traveling, so that's a hard pass. They reminisce about the time they became friends 15 years earlier during high school. Nino had an unapproachable energy. Jean stood out as well. This similarity brought them together. Jean has remained the same. Even the ACTA couldn't change him. Nino notices a new cigarette brand with Jean and reports it to Gorosla. It is revealed that Nino has known Jean way longer, to be exact, for about 30 years. Jean brings back packets of chips and bread from his trip as a souvenir for the team. His next stop is Suitsu district, in about 2 weeks' time. Jean and Mauve run into each other at the bakery yet again. He gives her bread from the Jumoku district. She asks him out to dinner. They are at the office when Jean asks Not about the dress code for a restaurant on 7th Avenue for dinner with Mauve. The 5 chiefs watch him move about in ACCA premises, wondering if the news about him being involved in coup d'etat is actually going to be accurate. They know that Grossula is planning everything, but Lilium voices out that they can't let him have the sole grip over Crow. Upon arriving at the restaurant, Jean sees Mauve arriving as well. He gets flustered. Glad he stuck it out at ACA and didn't get transferred. At their condo, a delivery guy shows up with potatoes from the Famasu district. Nino is certain that Jean got himself dragged into something. Over dinner, Mauve requests him to be her ally. She goes straight to the point and tells him that she is referring to the rumors about a coup d'etat. It's Jean's first time hearing about it. She explains that even though Grossula has stopped her from carrying out any more audits, she wants Jean to relay any suspicious information in secrecy when he is out on his audit rounds. He still can't digest the fact that an uprising could happen in a peaceful nation like theirs. Looks like Grossula lied to the rest of the 5 chiefs to get them to trip over their own mistakes. At the castle, Prince Xuan is informed about the rumoured coup d'etat. He simply laughs it off. His coming-of-age commemorative ceremony is flung at ACCA the last moment. The 5 chief officers read the letter addressed to ACA. They have been invited along with Director General and the Deputy Director General and 2 members from the Inspection Department. Al chooses Jean and Not to attend. During their dinner, Mauve tells him that the coup will probably set in motion when the king's grandson takes the throne because that boy is a complete idiot, and definitely not cut out to rule over the kingdom. Some higher-ups in ACCA do not want this change, hence the coup d'etat. Jean finally makes a comment. He refuses to do the investigation for her. She replies that she is asking him this favour for the sake of the nation. ACCA was created to protect the people, not ravage them. She wants ACA to keep on guiding the country towards peace. Heat Last accepts her request, making her smile, which in return leaves him smitten. Later, Nino and Jane hang out at a bar. Nino tells him that he will be joining him at the ceremony as well for coverage of the event, even though he is most likely there to keep an eye on Jean. At the castle, Prince Xuan is informed by his personal guard Maggie that the ceremony dress will be a formal one for the guests. The prince shows his abhorrence for the ACCA organisation for not wanting to see their uniforms and is planning to announce their disbandment at the end of his speech during the ceremony. He is certain that ACCA will meet its end on the day of the ascension. He then proceeds to tell Meiji that after that he is going to shut down the Central Congress and shift the Privy Council under the royal jurisdiction. Meiji raises a question on who would replace the Privy Council's president. The prince's answer is retirement for him. The day of the ceremony arrives. The 5 chief officers sit in a private room, with Mauve joining them. She informs them that all the branch chiefs have also made it just in time. They all are to dine together at night, and asks if the inspection department staff should join as well. Spade makes it clear that there is no need for them to join. Pine questions their invitation. Mauve explains that it's because of the rumours circulating about the coup d'etat. Mauve tells them that the 5 chiefs are obviously impenetrable. Moreover, all the powerful figures from the Central Congress and ACCA are present as well, which is definitely not an everyday sight. King Falk II begins his speech by thanking everyone for gathering to celebrate his grandson's coming of age, and ends it with telling them to enjoy themselves. The prince is left stunned. The king doesn't announce the ascension of his grandson. Prince Xuan is left with no choice but to make his speech. He thanks the guests for gathering for his coming-of-age ceremony. No announcements are further made. John requests to smoke on the balcony, and despite the guard declining, the prince grants him permission. Prince Schwartz finds the site interesting because smoking has been strictly regulated by the Privy Council due to the king's health concern. Yet here they are, watching Jean smoke on the castle's balcony. Xuan's eyes fall on Lotta and demands for Magi to find details on her. Jean and Not see her as well. She tells them that she is here to assist Nino, even though they all know she is just a +1. As a reporter, Nino asks about Mauve's views on the ceremony, but she instead reveals that she knows Nino works for ACA and happens to be Jean's friend. Nino reports this to Grossular. However, a more pressing matter happens to be the Privy Council president paying close attention to Jean. Not just him, but everyone capable of overthrowing the kingdom has their eyes on Jean. John goes out for yet another smoke. Lilium joins him and explains why everyone keeps staring at him, but Jean is as unbothered as ever. Lilium catches on. He expresses his concern on the fact that Grossular had spread all these rumours regarding the man, because it's obvious Jean doesn't have anything to do with it. He proceeds to say that maybe he is using Jean as a decoy for his plans for a coup. Lilium promises to not let that happen and keep the order intact. He requests Jean for his help in maintaining peace. This reminds Jean about Mauve's comment on how they both desire order. Lotta has prepared a gift box for the owners of the building. Nino tells her that he will drop it at the post office. As soon as he goes out the door, he calls someone informing a mystery man about leaving for Suitsu district and would report from there. He will be dropping the box on the way. Furthermore, Xuan's men have arrived to gain information on Lotta. Warbler, the Suitsu ACCA Inspection Department branch chief, collects Jean. On the way to the office, Jean asks him about his stay at the district, because this particular one is keen on preserving its traditions and doesn't allow any contact with outsiders. Warbler admits that it's tough compared to Dower since the latter doesn't have any restrictions on travelling. Jean compliments him by saying that he definitely does his job very well and can easily fill his shoes for the deputy chief's position, but his request for transfer keeps getting denied. Warbler disagrees. He is certain that he won't be able to keep it cool with the brass like Jean does. At the office, Warbler hands him the itinerary for the audit and tells him that he will pick him up at 8 in the morning. In the meeting room of the 5 chief officers, Leland gives his opinion that Jean Otis has got nothing to do with the coup d'etat. Back in Suitsu district, John is informed to visit the south sector next. On his way, he wants to grab some lunch, but because of the no-contact policy with outsiders, Warbler volunteers to buy the food. Jean starts enjoying the view and takes a couple of photos. Some men see him and drag him to their meeting place. It turns out that an actual coup d'etat is being planned. They mistakenly thought that Jean had overheard them. Biscuit, a member of ACCA, also joins them. The paranoid men start questioning him if they are under investigation. John's demeanour doesn't change the slightest. He is as calm as ever, even though he is tied up. Biscuit explains to him that they hold these meetings because they want to bring about a change in their district. They want to get rid of the suffocating traditions of their nation, aka district, because they still don't have their freedom like the rest of the districts. It's safe to say that their view of a coup d'etat is definitely different from the ones the chief officers are anticipating. Biscuit lays out their demand once they take over the district office. They want leniency with the transportation network. They want the district's representative Congressman Bure to resign. Biscuit relays that after the formation of the central congressional system, it was decided that each district representative will work on the progression of their district. Over time, the rest of the districts kept in touch with each other and made progression. However, Suitsu remained the same because of the nobles wanting to preserve its traditions. Then came Bure, a common man, promising to change to old ways of the district, but greed and glory swallowed him up and he hasn't left Baden ever since he sat on that congressman's seat. Bure meets one of the 5 chief officers, Pastis, and lies to him about visiting the district on his private jet. Lilium's older brother, a district chief, meets Pastis, who already knows that Bure has asked him to put a good word in for him so that he can join their circle. Pastis informs the chief that even if Bure ever returns to his home, he will be burned alive. Walburn joins them as well. He is already part of the movement. His eyes meet Jean's and freaks out, asking Biscuit for an explanation. The man simply says that their plan had been exposed. Just then, one of the members comes rushing to inform them that their West Sector meeting place has been seized by ACCA, and in no time they will meet the same fate. The members of the coup fight them spearheaded but later get arrested, including Biscuit. Jean informs Walburn that the latter will be held accountable for being an accomplice. The man is worried about getting fired. Afterwards, a gag order is issued by the branch director. He tries to talk Jean into not mentioning the coup to the HQ. Jean cunningly tells him that it is going to be possible only on the condition if they release all the people captured during the coup. His request is granted. Later on, Jean informs Welburn that he will retain his position and can stay in the district instead of getting reassigned elsewhere. Magi takes on the task of finding information regarding Lotta himself. However, he gets distracted by the bread sandwich. Back at the inspection department, Jean ponders over what information should be disclosed to Mauve because he obviously can't let her know about the coup that went down in Suitsu. He decides to take the bus home, but Lilium offers him a ride instead. He starts inquiring about Suitsu right away. Jean doesn't give away any information. Lilium tells him that Grossula has assigned an observer to him over a month ago, and the man refuses to share any information. So Lilium has decided to approach Jean himself. Jean tells him that Grossula is probably not behind the coup d'etat, and questions if the observer happens to be someone from Acier. Lilium informs him that the person is from Internal Affairs, and Jean hasn't been able to notice his presence because he is most likely used to his gaze. This catches Jean off guard. Jean arrives at the Bira district for yet another audit. Nino is already there and informs the mystery man on the phone about it. The area has turned white with snowfall. This time, Jean feels someone watching him. Nino realizes that too. Later at night, the mystery man orders Nino to reveal certain information to Jean and gauge where he stands. Nino can no longer be his friend, but he has to continue with his duties. Later at night, Jean has dinner with Bira District's branch chief Perry. He enlightens Jean about the struggle of growing wheat due to the rough conditions and the barren soil of the district. He is thankful for what they have, but is still concerned for the future of his district because he doesn't want other districts to only flourish and leave behind Bira due to its limited resources. Back at the castle, Maggie makes the prince try the different kinds of breads he brings from his trip to Baden. He informs the prince that the only way to get Lotta to like him is to open a bread bakery in Dower. He asks Maggie about her parents since she gets to live in a luxurious apartment. Maggie's informant, Rail, tells him that they are no more. After the conclusion of the inspection, John decides to go for a stroll in the snowy woods at night. He knows that Nino is in the forest watching him. The man finally comes out of the dark. John doesn't get upset or bothered, but only wants him to tell him someday about whatever is going on. For now, Nino tells him that he doesn't watch him because of ACLA. They both later have dinner with Lotta. Jean wants Nino to take her out for dinner every night when he is not around. Jean's next stop for audit happens to be Rokusu District. There he meets the ACCA Inspection Department Rokusu Branch Supervisor Sandpiper, and because the audit is during the Christmas break, Jean promises to wrap things up quickly. During their car ride, the people on the streets look similar to Chief Officer Grossula because of their long hair. However, they do end up spotting the actual Chief Officer Grossula amongst them. Chief Officer Lilium and Chief Officer Pastis are at the airport. They discuss their position and sentiments for ACCA, but it's obvious that no one is as concerned for the institution as much as he is. Lotta rings up John to ask about his location while she has dinner with Nino as promised. He informs her that he is on a train. Nino assures her that no accident will occur this time because the National Railway is being controlled by ACCA. After the train ride, Jean goes to meet Chief Officer Grossula. A flashback begins. It shows that a railway accident took place at the Peshi-Rokusu border. On the TV, the list of those who tragically passed away airs. Jean and little Lotta watch the news as the names of their deceased parents flashed on the screen. Schnee Otis and Carl Otis. The flashback ends. Groschler is annoyed with his presence because Jean shows up for no reason. The chief officer asks him about his audits. Jean informs him that he only has the south sector left to cover. Groschler urges him to share with him whatever is on his mind. Jean finally speaks up. He reminds Groschler of the time Mauve was appointed as the Director General of ACCA. She wrote in her article about Groschler taking the National Railway line under ACCA's protection because he wanted to build a better nation. This action of his stood out for her. Jean relays that he feels the same because after that railway incident in which he lost his parents, the chief officer's dedication helped prevent further casualties. Jean further tells him that he doesn't know why he has been dragged into this coup business, even though he is not involved, but he also believes that Groschler isn't involved in it either. With that, he takes his leave. However, Groschler only thinks of him as naive. Jean makes it back home. He crosses paths with Mauve, who wants him to dish out any information he might have for her. However, he has nothing to report back. She leaves disappointed. The next day, Atori, Moz and Kelly, the ladies of the inspection department, request Jean for an invitation to the party being hosted at the building he lives in. He happily invites them over. Even Knot gets to go because Lotta suggests they can have their own little party as well, so Knot's kids can sleep at their place when they get tired. At the party, Rael tries to hit it up with Lotta by giving her a cake from Dower as instructed by Maggie. However, she thinks that it's for Jean. Mission failed. The department chief shows up with a baked Dowan cake for Lotta as well. Rael sees their interaction and feels threatened. Mauve stands on a balcony. She reminisces about the fact that it's already been 100 years since ACCA was formed. She plans on being the first to make a move. The next day she makes a speech just like any other year. Mauve then holds a meeting with her subordinates from the Kororo district concerning the coup d'etat. Since she has been forbidden from carrying out any audits, she wants them to do it without raising any suspicions. However, so far according to their reports, nothing much is of concern, besides the king's deteriorating health. She already knows about the coup in the Suitsu district, and has realized that Jean's loyalty doesn't lie with her, but rather with his own subordinates. In the 5 chief officers' waiting room, Groschler joins them and confronts Lilium for leaking information regarding Crow being Jean's observer to Jean. Lilium doesn't cower away. He tells Groschler that he wanted Jean to make a move, to do something. He also demands that Groschler share all the information regarding Jean with the rest and set a time for them to discuss the future of ACA. Jean is in the Hair district. He has dinner with ACCA Inspection Department Hair Branch Supervisor named Pulse. The people there are really cheerful and happy-go-lucky. Even the district chief, Sereno, shows up to join them. He inquires about the audits and how it's going for the rest of the districts. Jean is reminded of Lilium telling him that his role is that of an intermediary. Right now, they are trying to get information out of him about the other district's opinion on a coup d'etat, and he needs to play his role to get as much information out of them. Jean's next flight is Dower District. Upon arrival, he meets ACCA's Inspection Department Dower Branch Supervisor Aigret. Jean sits in the office smoking. He thinks back to everything related to the coup that has happened. So far, the districts think that he has played the role of an intermediary and coup sympathizer. Till now, no activity related to a coup has taken place during the audits, but there is anticipation high-ranking officials in the districts think that he is part of the coup. Groschler is keeping an eye on him because the man thinks he is a sympathizer, but then there is Lilium, who believes that Groschler started the whole rumour and is involved in it. Then there is Mauve, who wants him to investigate the coup but doesn't seem to be aware of the sympathizer's intermediary thing. Now everything depends on the king's health, how much longer he can sit on the throne. All of this is happening and Jean still doesn't understand why he is positioned in the middle as an intermediary. At the castle, Maggie mentions that the prince was telling him about an incident that happened 33 years ago. Jean and Nino go to a bakery to get snowball pastries on Lotta's request. The girl is literally dreaming about them. When they reach the bakery, they're told that His Majesty the King is on round, but everyone should carry their business as usual. Nino and Jean sit down to enjoy their dessert when the king enters. He initiates small talk, which leads to him offering Jean to join him at his table. Nino takes their photograph. By the end of the night, Nino is so drunk that he spills some details about his job. He tells Jean that he never gets praised by his superior. The man has him by the collar every time he ends up enjoying what he does. Nino's sudden rant leaves Jean wondering. At the castle, the king admires the Dower family portraits hung on the wall. Prince Xuan is by his side. He is finally able to put up his portrait on his coming of age. Back at Baden, Mauve seems to be avoiding Jean because she has stooped visiting the bakery they often cross paths at. Jean brings Lotte that delicious snowball pastry. She excitedly munches on it. Jean's next stop happens to be the Korore district. Nino is already on the phone, with Chief Officer Grossula giving him updates of the trip. He informs the man that the people of the Hare district are ready for the coup to take place. However, Korore district doesn't get influenced by anyone, so something might go down there on their visit. He ends the call and rings up the mystery man. He also updates him about the trip to Dower and confesses that he feels the fatigue catching up to him. He ends the call and thinks about how he has grown up so much. It has already been 30 years. Mauve's subordinates finally get to update her on Jean being a sympathizer of coup, even though he isn't. At Korore district, he visits Mauve Avenue and looks at the wall containing that article in which Mauve mentioned Grossula. The pictures of her subordinates are also hung on the wall. He hoped that he would get the chance to explain himself to Mauve about the whole sympathizer thing. He is greeted by the branch chief Grise. She cuts to the chase and tells him to get some rest. He isn't going to be sugar-coated here like the other men from the districts have been doing. Jean enters the office and the ACCA inspection department, Korore branch supervisor Larousse tells him that she has already made his travel arrangements. She inquires about the king's health and shows her concern about ACCA's future. Jean assures her that he looked just fine when he met His Majesty at Dower. Prince Xuan pays a visit to his aunt, wanting to hear the story of how the second princess died 33 years ago. Jean is wandering on the streets of Korora when he meets Mauve. She confronts him about the report she has recently received regarding him. He tells her that it's just a rumor. She proceeds to say that she was referring to him being royalty. Say what now? The plot has finally thickened. She tells him to join her for a stroll while she explains it all. Nino listens in secrecy. Mauve tells him that she read the report about him being an intermediary for coup sympathizers, and in another report it said that he is from the royal bloodline. That was when it dawned on her that was getting in this whole plan for a coup. Later at a cafe, she grumbles about how he could have at least reported something to her, like the chief officer Grossula and the incident at Suits or when he had visited the Mauve Avenue. She understands that he didn't mention Grossula's rumoured to be a coup sympathizer because she has immense respect for that man, but if he had reported the matter to her, Jean could have earned great credit for it. However, he tells her that he didn't report the matter not out of consideration, but because he believes that Grossula is not involved in the coup. After leaving the cafe, she shows her astonishment about him being not the least bit curious about himself because he doesn't ask a single question regarding his royal bloodline. Jean admits that he only looks composed and wants to know more, but he has someone else in mind to discuss this matter with. At the castle, Prince Xuan declines going out to Baden to broaden his view. He only wanted to visit Lotte to see if there will be any sort of hindrance for him because after listening to his aunt's tale, Lotte might be related to the late princess. So the question remains if Princess Schnee really is dead because Lotte looks just like her when she was 16. However, it doesn't bother him since she is a girl and obviously can't take the throne. Maggie swiftly reminds him of the man that took permission to smoke on the castle's balcony during the ceremony, that he happens to be her older brother. The prince starts fuming when the information is revealed to him. He wants Maggie to carry out a complete investigation on Jean. Maggie refuses because he has been prohibited to leave the prince's side, just like the guard named Abend that disappeared in the sea with the princess 33 years ago. Nino informs the mystery man that Jean has finally learned about his true identity, but Nino is unclear on how much he knows. Nino has to be the one to tell Jean the whole truth now that he knows why he is dragged into the coup situation. We are taken back in history. 33 years ago in Dower Castle sits the second princess named Schnee as her portrait gets painted. She tells Abend, her guard, that the royal family should not confine itself to the walls of the castle and see the world outside. The king and Quam watch her from afar. The latter tells him that because of the freedom she has been given to study abroad, she has become interested in national affairs. She has acquaintance with the common youth, and her view has broadened. All of this could be a dangerous thing for the future of the royal family and the nation. The king is reluctant to trap her inside the confines of the castle. Quam starts devising a plan. At night, Quam informs Abend that he can either obey or refuse to obey the order he is about to give him. He has to sign a sworn statement and never speak of it if he values his life. Quam tells him that the princess's ties with the royal family will be wiped away. turning her into a plain commoner. They will make this happen when in 7 days' time the princess will take a small boat for a tour of the nation. Only Abend will be with her on it. He will take her to Baden while it will be announced that the boat has tragically sunk. Abend agrees to the order. However, he requests to take his loyal man with him. Quam tells him to make it certain the man leaves his son behind. Upon relaying the message to Nino's father, he agrees and promises to leave with him, but he wants to feed his son his favourite apple cake one last time. The son, who happens to be Nino, hears it all and demands Abend to take him away as well. Abend agrees. Meanwhile, the princess thanks her father for giving her the opportunity to venture into the outside world. She only wishes well for the nation and wants to be of use to her father in the future. It doesn't bother her that she will live as a citizen of the nation rather than a member of the Dower royal family. The father is very pleased and caresses her hair one last time. However, she wishes Abend would not get dragged in it as well. The king reminds her that they all chose from the options available to them. This includes Abend too. The ship sinks as planned and they move to Baden. There Schnee and Abend part ways for good. Nino's father keeps sending updated photographs and reports on the princess's life to the king. She falls in love. The man is poor. The king gets him a job in secrecy and orders on the down low to build an apartment complex for them. Nino's father works relentlessly to keep the higher-ups happy. Schnee gets married to the man, they have a son, Jean, and then later on a daughter, Lotta. When the son enters high school, Nino's father decides that it is time for Nino to take part in this job. He instructs his son to enroll into the same high school and join a photography club. This way, he can take tons of photos of Jean and become friends with him so that he can get invited to their home and eat the bread baked by the princess. He will make Nino write a report on its taste to the master. Nino reminds him that he is 25, definitely not a high schooler. His father wants him to hide his identity behind glasses. He has already prepared a camera and glasses. Nino, like the obedient son he is, complies with what his father demands of him. He quickly becomes friends with Jean and clicks his photos every chance he gets. He's able to meet Lotta and Schnee. One day he gets invited and brings back her baked bread. They send it to the castle with a report. One day, the train accident gets displayed on the TV in which Jean and Lotta lose their parents and become orphans. Nino gets the call from Abend that his father has also died in the accident. He needs to go to Rokuse and retrieve whatever was left behind. No suspicion should arise concerning the royals. Nino confronts him that he knows he was only allowed to follow in his father's footsteps, but he did it all for the sake of his father, the same way Abend did it for the sake of the princess, and not for the king or the Privy Council. Abend nonchalantly agrees. Nino goes to retrieve the camera and the flashback ends. Nino tells John that he needs to keep in mind the fact that the princess has no name left in the royal family. This means he can't claim the throne. Jean isn't interested in it anyway. He is just glad that Nino had his back when his parents died. Nino informs him that even though Jean doesn't like being watched, he will have to deal with it as long as the king lives. Jean goes back home. Lotta is excited about all the presents he has brought back. She wants to give some to Nino, but Jean informs her that he will be away for a while due to work. He comments on her looking more like their mother now. Schwan has deviously informed his aunt, the first princess, about the Otis siblings. She wants them out of the way for the throne. Magi tells Schwan that she might send assassins after them. He is unbothered because that means he won't have to worry about Jean being an obstacle. Magi takes matters into his own hands and informs Rael about Lotta's life being in danger. Jean, before departing for a 3-day work trip, requests Owl to take Lotta out for tea in his absence. He doesn't want her to feel lonely. Meanwhile, Rael follows Lotta to save her from getting jumped by assassins. He decides to take her to ACCA HQ where she will be the safest. He explains that he doesn't know what is truly happening, but all he knows is that her life is in danger. Rael promises to keep her safe. They spot 2 suspicious-looking men on the subway. They are able to make it to the central marketplace. Rael wants them to take the bus to the branch office, but they get stopped by the owner of the cafe she frequently visits. He takes them to his cafe. From there, she wants to go back to the apartment to change her uniform so that she would blend in the crowd, even though her blonde hair makes her stand out no matter what. In Pesci District, ACEA Inspection Department Pesci Branch Supervisor, Parser informs Jean that the statue of Schnee is built to watch over the Pesci waters. He has a meeting with the Pesci District Chief, Herring, and Pesci District Branch Director, Clam. Herring informs John that the district has brought a grave tragedy upon the royals. That is why he had refused to take any responsibility for the train accident in the past, because it could have amplified the people's views of the district. Jean questions if they would like for ACCA to not exist at all. Herring is taken aback by that and quickly voices out that ACCA must keep standing, and Pesci wants Jean to be the next one to take the throne. It looks like word about it has travelled. Back in the apartment, Lotte can't grasp the seriousness of the situation. The assassins find them, but she is still worried about the window breaking. Rail acts quickly and takes her to the elevator to escape from them. They decide on taking the elevator down to the machine room and then escaping through the stairs. The police might have been notified by now, but traffic could cause delay, which leaves Rail to call his own backup. They make it outside. The backup happens to be his police buddy. The police also arrive, but they think that the man looks suspicious and goes after him. The assassins surround the two, and they are taken hostage. Lotte questions about the kidnapping. One of them replies that it's her blood. It dawned on her that she is a princess. Just then, Branch Chief Owl shows up at the rolled-down window to catch a breath. He sees Lotte and the men. He recognizes the men's cufflinks are from Dower, and their bow ties meant that the men worked for the first princess. Owl threatens to call Dower Akka Branch to confirm this unannounced visit, which frightens the men, and they release the hostages. At the Director General's office, Mauve orders her subordinates to forward the 5 chief officers the report about the royal ambassadors acting strange in the Baden districts. The rumor about Jean's bloodline has spread. Meanwhile, ACA Inspection Department Yakara Branch Supervisor Falco takes Jean to the office. In the 5 chief officers' meeting room, Grossula finally enlightens the rest about everything that has actually happened so far concerning Jean. He informs them that he learnt about the man's royal roots right after the decision of terminating the inspection department was passed. He then proceeds to say that the coup elements have surfaced in all of the 13 districts, but he wants ACCA to lead a coup. This is why he wanted to remove the inspection department so that it wouldn't cause any trouble for the coup, but then he decided to use Jean as an intermediary of coup sympathizers and assigned Crow to him. This was done for the sole purpose to see how notable figures from each district would react to the news about the coup. Next concern is that of the throne. Prince Xuan isn't a worthy fit because he wants to get rid of ACEA and create an autocratic state, whereas Jean desires peace for the nation, but he has been removed from the bloodline. Getting him on the throne isn't going to be an easy feat. However, Jean has gained support from coup sympathizers to help achieve it. He reminds them that all of this is for the future of ACA. Lilium questions why they weren't informed about this plan right from the beginning. Groschler answers that he needed to first see how the districts would react to the news regarding the coup. Lilum finally agrees with his decision, and the rest follow suit. The scene switches to Groschler and Lilum enjoying champagne and discussing the roles they played during the whole thing. It looks like they both had it all planned right from the beginning. Lilium wants to make the game even more entertaining before Spade loses interest. They now anticipate their next step, in which they have to keep Mauve quiet. The way Lilium forcefully grabs him by his hair, it's obvious who runs the show. Groschler is a mere puppet in this whole act, and Lilium knows that Mauve will listen to Groschler. Back in Yakara district, Jean has to play cards with the district's ACCA branch chief, Kino, and district chief, Baccarat. The latter tells him that he has the district's support to take the throne. It is revealed that Lilium was the one who wanted each district to retain its characteristics. He wanted to restore order via a coup in the nation, and that was only going to be possible if ACRBA was the one that organized it, because otherwise it will only result in havoc. This is when he introduced to Groschler the idea of a little ploy. He will act to disagree with things that Groschler will speak of, so that at the end of it all, when he does agree, it will have an influence on the rest of the 5 chief officers. Furthermore, the inspection department is a hindrance, but if Jean is of royal blood, then a coup will act as a magnet to pull him towards the throne. They now need to stop Mauve because she is caught onto the rumors. He knows Groschler will take care of it though. Things are going according to plan because Mauve agrees to the coup d'etat. However, she is still not certain if Jean would also agree to it. Lilium lets his older brother, the district chief, know about the coup. He gladly tells him that the nation is going the way they had desired and their district Führer will take everything in its clutches. Lotte is enjoying a party in her apartment. The rest of the inspection department is there. As it happens, Rail has also been invited. Lotte tells Jean about it all. He is currently in the scorching heat and dryness of the desert district called Pranetta. The Akaioi Inspection Department Pranetta branch supervisor, Rockstera, has even modified her uniform according to the climate. She gives him a heads up that they won't be giving him a formal welcome, even though he is of royal blood. Rockstera warns him not to drink all the water provided to him because it's a scarce commodity in the district. The district has set everything up in tunnels because of the unbearable climate outside. Inside, the temperature is livable. They don't even have a room for him. He has to take a spare office because a film crew has taken up all the lodgings. Jean is certain Nino is watching him from somewhere. The audit starts from the north sector. He gets through with it quickly. Everything looks good so far. However, there is still some inconvenience regarding the reports. They can't be sent right away due to the lack of access to the TV antenna. Rockstera tells him that the TV is the only source of entertainment for the people of the district, and they can't take it away from them for their own convenience. Just when they are trying to catch a good signal, they get engulfed by a sandstorm. The three have to resort to eating the emergency ration. Rockstera doesn't want to offend Jean, but he assures her that he is just like the rest of them. They then discuss the differences of living in Suitsu and Planeta. It is difficult to abide by all the rules and regulations in Suitsu, but still, at least it isn't poor like Planeta. Rockstera tells Jean that even in these harsh living conditions, the citizens still choose to follow their dream, which happens to be mining. The people keep on mining, but Haven found nothing of value so far. Still, they don't complain about the authorities the way Suitsu does. The storm finally subsides and they reach their next destination to meet the branch chief and district chief. The people gather outside to enjoy the dusk time because the weather is bearable after sunset. The district chief tells him that their support is with Jean if the coup occurred, even though they don't have anything to offer. Mauve waits for Jean to arrive at the cafe, but Director General Pochard walks in instead. She gets a call. Apparently there is a disturbance and ACCA is in chaos. On the other hand, Lotta tells Jean about the kidnapping while he was gone. He informs her that they are indeed from a royal bloodline and Nino has been serving under the Privy Council president, watching over them this whole time. The headline of the king's deteriorating health is aired on the TV. He was at a ceremony but had to leave due to health concerns, and it has been issued that he will have to focus on his health, with no chance of further attending any public gatherings. The ACAA building is in a state of panic. However, the 5 chief officers wait calmly for any further news. They start discussing a plan about an early coup to stop the idiot Prince Xuan from taking the throne. Spades point out that the centennial ceremony is around the corner. They don't have much time to change any plans. Lillian proposes to use the ceremony to their advantage. Grossula walks into Mauve's office asking her if Jean has given her any reports on the districts. She denies. He then questions Jean's reasons. Mauve tells him that he could simply be busy or might have a specific reason. Regardless, Grossula will be informed. The first princess is worried about the throne. In the beginning, it was only Prince Xuan she had to worry about, but now Princess Shni's kids have also added to the trouble. She tells her men that she wants Jean and Lotta dead no matter what. The Lillian brothers, except the chief officer, welcome Jean in the Furawao district. They take him to the district office. The brothers are quite proud to host a royal bloodline. They insist on him having tea with them. The people of Furawao district stand out just like the flowers of the district. They are calm and elegant. Jean asks if chief officer is the same as well. They jokingly tell him that he takes his job very seriously amongst the siblings. After their meeting, the ACCA Inspection Department Furawao branch supervisor, Canary, is already waiting in front of the car for Jean. The assassins appear from behind. They have been successful in tracking down John. Jean sees all the people smiling and having a good laugh. He senses that they are most likely putting on an act. Canary seems to have adopted their way of smiling constantly, but he says that it's the flowers that have a calming effect. Later at night, John dines at the district chief's estate. The assassins follow him, but their plan of luring him into a secluded area might fail, because it seems like he will spend the night there instead of his hotel, but they won't be sparing any opportunity. Someone in the dark eavesdrops on their plan. While having dinner, their discussion turns towards Planeta. The brothers don't show any real empathy for that district. They blame their living conditions on the central council budget and the arrogance of their leaders. Jean informs them that it is what their people want. One of them says that their people also want something. About 99% of the oil distributed throughout the districts is from Furawao district. His people want the practical use of resources, even though they are more than happy to be of use to the rest of the Dawa nation. Jean is reminded of the words that Planeta's district chief had uttered. The man had stated that if they were able to find any reserves, they would gladly share it with the other districts. However, if they were taken per force, then that would cause problems. Like Furawao, it had its oil resources before the nation of Dawa emerged. They had been taken away from them because of the unification. After dinner, he is represented with a cigarette. Jean states that it looks like their district is going to be the one leading the coup. They nonchalantly agree with him and tell him that they know that he will be revolting with them. Jean then sets out for his hotel in a car. The assassins have been waiting for him. One of them takes aim as soon as he gets out of the car and starts talking to Canary. Just then, someone appears out of thin air and pushes Jean to the ground, taking the hit. It turns out to be Nino. He had been keeping a close eye on Jean this whole time. He's taken to the hospital. Canary is bawling his eyes out. He can't understand why the district chief wants this incident regarding Jean being a target to stay hidden. One of the doctors informs them that Nino is finally awake. Jean goes to see him. He is breathing through an oxygen mask and can barely speak. Jean tells him that the men must be the same as those who had attempted an attack on Lotta, probably sent by the Dower royal family. Nino informs him that his supervisor never allowed him to visit Furawao, but this time he had to come because he was sent by the 5 chief officers as Agent Crow. Jean wants him to stop protecting him and Lotta. He doesn't want Nino to exist for the sole purpose of working for the Dower family anymore. The Lillian brothers wait for Jean. The man tells them that he was hoping he would somehow not get involved in this whole royalty business. But since he got dragged into it and the people wouldn't want ACA to dissolve, then he wants to join hands with them. The men are glad to hear his stance and advise him to meet with their younger brother, Chief Officer Lilium, for further information. At the castle, Magi asks for the prince to attend the ceremony in Baden on behalf of the king because he is going to be the king soon enough. He half-heartedly agrees. Back in Baden, Mauve waits for Jean at the cafe, but he goes to meet Lilium instead. The latter asks him about Crow's condition. He also tells him that he won't be holding him up long enough, but he is glad to know that Jean has reached a decision. It is finally revealed how the districts got to know about the bloodline. Lilam had passed the order that whichever district agreed to joining the coup would give the heir a cigarette. Jean had collected 13 cigarettes. Even Dower district had agreed on one. Lilium tells him that the people are desperately waiting for the rightful heir to take the throne. Jean doubts it though. However, the chief officer makes it certain that he understands only he can save ACCA and the nation. The entire district inspection department members have gathered at the Baden office. They discuss the coup that is about to take place soon when Warbler walks in. He had no clue a coup was going to happen. The rest joke about how he was left behind on such important news because he was in the Sweet Sioux district. He still can't wrap his head around it. Not has to explain it all to him, then Owl, but still he goes to ask for an explanation from Jean himself. However, all he has to say is that the man will understand in due time because Prince Xuan is a real headache to have around. Speaking of Xuan, while flying in his private plane, Magi tries to get him to visit his cousins in Baden, aka Jean and Lotta, but he outright refuses. Meiji then wants him to at least socialize with the commoners. Xuan rudely declines. He is only after the throne and nothing else. Outside of the meeting grounds, Lilium tells Grossula that everything is going according to plan. Jean will soon take the throne, and then the Lilium family will control Jean, who will then control the nation. Slowly, power will fall into the hands of the Furawao district before people can even realize. The same way Grossula's role is in ACA. People don't oppose anything, because they know they don't stand a chance against the Lilium family who happens to be behind it all. It's obvious that Chief Officer Lilium is consumed by his ego. The king rests in his bed. He feels bad for what the prince is about to face, but it has to be done. The king thanks Quam for giving him the chance to see his grandchildren grow, even if it was just through photographs. The meeting begins. Lilium is the one that addresses the meeting. He also introduces Jean as a prince. Lilium proceeds to say that the fate of ACA and the 13 districts rests on the shoulders of the coup. Rail and the rest of the cops are being instructed about controlling the crowd at the ceremony. During the meeting, there are whispers about the coup. Raal is prepared to protect Lotta from the chaos waiting ahead. During the meeting, Jean raises a point. He says that he wants to postpone the oath-taking bit till later, because what if things don't go smoothly and Prince Xuan refuses to cooperate with them after seeing Jean as prince? Therefore, it's best to announce his lineage on a later day. While he is outside, Jean asks Grossula about his opinion on Asia and the nation. On the day of the ceremony, the place is packed. The flags of both Dower and Asia have been displayed. Lotta joins the crowd. She spots Jean on the stage. Just then, the prince makes an entrance. No one looks happy to see him. Xuan is least bothered by anything happening around him anyway. Jean thinks about how the only ones oblivious about the coup happen to be Xuan and his men. The ACCA superiors make their speeches one after the other, and just when Prince Xuan stands on the podium, he gets surrounded by ACCA security. Chief Officer Lilium steps out from behind and tells him that they can't let someone who is planning to dissolve Aika to sit on the throne. Upon hearing this, the crowd goes wild. Xuan yells towards John to step out already and stand with him since he is of royal blood, but John pays no heed to his demand. Nino joins Lotta to protect her in case anything might happen to her. Mauve comes forward and tries to cool down the situation. She praises the Dower family under whom the nation has flourished for so long. She tells Xuan that ACAA not only protects its people but also the royal family. Furthermore, the nation is at peace because the Dower family has strived for peace. Lilium is not liking where her speech is heading towards. Magi and the rest of the guards form a protective circle around Xuan. Mauve motions for the ACAA men to stand down. She proceeds to say that he needs a heavy security, not just a few guards. He is an important figure and at any moment a gun could be pointed at him. This whole thing was only theatrical to make him understand the importance of having high security. Looks like Lilium's whole plan just went down the drain, no thanks to Mauve. She ends her speech by saying that ACCA's future lies in his hands. Prince Xuan, with renewed motivation, urges that ACCA should keep on protecting the country. Everyone starts clapping, but Chief Officer Lilium is not happy with this turn of events. He guesses Jean was behind it. The latter explains that when Mauve informed Jean about his bloodline, they sat down and strategized a plan because they knew this day would come. They made a fool of him by pretending to turn his goal into ACCA's. This was done because Furawa wanted to usurp the Dower family's position, and not because it wanted peace for the nation. Mauve had made sure that the testimony provided by the Furawa Central Council against Lilium was true. He can't take it anymore and declares that they quit this game of Dower Kingdom as he walks off the stage. Groschler praises Mauve's strength for carrying out everything so smoothly. He announces that the 5 chief officers' position will be abolished since it has been proven futile. Mauve is given the authority of sole leadership. He can now understand that the 13 different uniforms is what unifies them. The ceremony ends and Lotta is finally able to meet her brother. They see Xuan and Magi standing under the shade of a tree. Lotta thanks Magi for warning her about the assassins. Xuan, though stubborn and awkward, still invites them to the castle to meet the king. The ceremony was a turning point in Aka's history because Mauve became the highest ranked officer, and the 13 districts reduced to 12 because Furuao didn't want to be a part of the nation. But ACCA's logo remained the same because Groschler is hopeful that Furuao will someday become part of the nation again. After the secession of Furuao, people were concerned for Prenetta because they were dependent on Furuao. But it was finally able to unearth some resources through mining, which drastically helped the district. Spade retired, Pine became Jumoku district chief. Furthermore, Suitsu was finally given the right to elect its own representative. Pastis became Suitsu district chief. Biscuit got nominated to the council. Suits got the chance to go towards progression. The Lilium brothers stayed unbothered with whatever was happening in Dower Nation. After all, it's none of their business anymore. Lotta gets to meet the king again, this time as a princess and granddaughter. She came with arms full of bags of sandwiches for Xuan, Rail, and the first princess, even though that woman wanted her dead. Nino meets his supervisor. He tells the latter that the plan was all designed by the Privy Council President Quam. He wanted to get rid of the Lilium family scheme before the prince sat on the throne, even though this meant dragging the Otis siblings into the mess. However, Nino reminds him that the supervisor did indeed play an important role in assuring Quam that Jean would never take the throne. All the while, he guided Jean through every turn for the past 6 months. Moreover, the king no longer has to rely on photographs and can spend his remaining days physically with all of his grandchildren. As they stand in front of the grave of Nino's later father, the supervisor says that they have finally been relinquished from their duty of watching over the Otis siblings. The supervisor sits in a taxi and wants his next stop to be the hair salon to dye his hair back to white. The mystery man happens to be none other than Abend himself, the same man who was once Princess Shni's royal guard. He also has been the one tearing every single one of Jean's transfer applications. Jean goes back to being the deputy chief, and this year the schedule isn't as jam-packed as the previous year. Their everyday routine goes back to how it used to be, and the story comes to an end. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.